Put your hand up if you are a working homeschool mom. I'd love to meet you. If we haven't already met, I'm Teresa. I am the certified life coach here. I am the graduated homeschool mom who spent probably the last 6 years working as a working homeschool mom in my final homeschool years. If you are working and you are either working outside the home or you're building a business, I'd love to hear what you do. Just mention it in the comments below, whether you're live here in the Homeschool Mama support group or I find you over on YouTube in the Homeschool Mom and Wellness Mindset channel. So lovely to meet you. I know that even if you start your day with the best of intentions, you start your homeschool year with the best of your best energy, your most vibrant energy, it doesn't take very long for you to get to the place where you feel like the days are being lost in the busyness of you don't even know what, but you're trying to incorporate all the things that really matter to you, but you don't know how to do it. You can't even find your coffee cup. The coffee cup is cold and you found it in the laundry room by the end of the day with the unfinished laundry load that you meant to do. Maybe it's piles of laundry on the floor. They're not started yet and you've got an emotional mess with your kiddo after a math activity that you tried to force feed. And now you are off to tennis lessons. And by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you feel like you failed. If you can relate to that kind of energy in some of your working homeschool mom days, then you're in the right place and this conversation is for you. So let's chat today about what might actually be the thing that you need to do to feel sane as a working homeschool mom. Tell me how many years you're already homeschooling. Tell me how many years you've been working and homeschooling. I'd like to hear that too. So let's start here. I know from experience and also walking alongside working homeschool moms that the goal to actually feel sane is to simplify everything, to stop trying to do everything and to make things a lot simpler. So this includes simplifying your homeschool life. It includes simplifying your wardrobe. It includes simplifying the food that you put on the table. If you can outsource something, outsource it when you can. So that might mean that you have a grandma that's helping alongside some of the subjects, or maybe she has a special gift or someone in the neighborhood has a special gift and you want to include them in your homeschool. Maybe you want to do a little online work. A lot of working homeschool moms outsource that. Sometimes it means that you're using YouTube as a resource too. There's so many possible ways to outsource some of the subjects or some of the conversations that you want to have with your kids, but you don't have time to do all the things. Of course, many working homeschool moms focus on online work or online programs to help them do the bulk of the bigger things. It's always important to go back and to actually see where your children at. And I say that from experience because I have also let things go and not actually paid attention to what was going on for a while. So make it time in your calendar where you actually do return to the activity. So decluttering your wardrobe is a great one that one mom shared with me last week, to include only very choice pieces in her wardrobe so she doesn't have to make more decisions in the day. It's just decreasing her mental load. Simplifying her menu plan, repeating meals. That's something that I did throughout pretty much my entire homeschool years. I chose one meal per day and then knew that every Monday that would be fish night, or every Tuesday would be chicken night. I had very specific intentional things every single day, so I didn't have to think about it. So if you learn what I did for years, you can actually check it out in the YouTube playlist below called the Homeschool Kitchen. One of my girls and I in her high school years had a project of going to the kitchen and creating a meal together, getting the recipe for it and sharing it with you on YouTube. So it was a really fun project to do for homeschool high school, but it also helps you understand what exactly it was that I cooked every day forever. It might be a useful way for you to approach menu planning, but at the end of the day, what I know for sure is that we need to simplify every single element of our homeschool life, our homeschool mom life. So I'm going to ask you a question. What one thing can you take off your routine this upcoming year? If this is the first year that you're homeschooling and working, then I've got a different question for you. But what is one thing that you could take off your home or working homeschool mom routine this year and you wouldn't feel bad about it? Put it in the comments below and let the new working homeschool moms know they don't need to feel bad about that thing either. And for the new working homeschool moms, know this. If you are comparing yourself to other homeschool moms in your co-op or community, if you have the time to do that, or anywhere that you could compare online, just remember that you are not capable of including as many activities in your day as other homeschool moms might. So working while your kids are at home with you, it sounds, actually before you get doing it, you actually think this should not be that hard, right? Except that when you do it, then you're like, it's kind of challenging. Your emotional energy is drawn towards your kids. If they ask you for something, you immediately want to respond. So it feels like you're not quite as open and available to them if you're telling them, I'm in the same room as you, but I'm not talking. But actually, that's a goal. If you can move toward that goal, they know that at a certain time of the day, you're not available when you open up your computer or your book or whatever it is you're doing. If they know that this is the time of day that you're working, they'll gradually get into a habit of recognizing that you're unavailable right now. You will have to repeat that a lot. So that's actually one of the things that I had a conversation about in the podcast this past week. The Homeschool Mama Self-Care podcast is the 5 challenges of the working homeschool mom life. So I think it's important that we not pretend that our kids should just be occupied fully with their lists and then they should happily be doing their things. And we should just hope that they're going to be occupied with that all the time. Our reality is that, yes, we can take advantage during the summer when there are summer camps. We can take advantage of big swaths of time when they're occupied like that, or when they have extracurriculars. Assume that you're going to a library or a cafe to do your work alone, or plan those predictable quiet afternoon times. But you can't always assume that they're going to be fully engaged into the checklist just because you really hope they would be. Of course, you want to teach them how to be fully engaged, but at times they actually really need you. They need eyeball to eyeball time. In fact, they need it a lot. That's why they're kids. And so regularly including it in your schedule, like scheduling in eyeball to eyeball time with Jason or Melissa, words that I hear names that I don't hear anybody naming their kids anymore. But, include eyeball to eyeball time with each of those kids. Slot it in to your time block so that you can make sure to include intentional time with them. And while you're at it, include you. Put you into that time block too. When you create windows or blocks for you to specifically focus, then you can tell yourself, I don't need to feel guilty. I'm doing it for a certain period of time. I'm not doing it forever, but this is the time that I'm doing it, and I will practice not feeling guilty that I am not with my kids 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Side note, if it's, sometimes I think it's okay for our kids to be bored, and sometimes it takes a little bit for us to get accustomed to our kids being bored and that being an okay thing. I think this is really a discussion for every homeschool mom, this boredom piece, because our culture generally doesn't support kids being bored. We're supposed to always give them activities or engage them in some way. But actually, I think for all of us, whether kids or adults alike, when we have a little boredom time, we get to think about life. We get to be in our own mental space, really be with ourselves. We can ask ourselves questions like, what do you really want to do? I know you feel like you have to do certain things, but what do you want to do? And I think that solitude is a really useful thing. And we have the possibility of incorporating it in our homeschool families in a way that most people don't in our culture. but mostly we won't do it either. But I encourage you to lean into it. Allow for boredom, allow for solitude. So the next piece that I want to speak with you about is forget trying to follow a school bell. This, of course, is a piece for all homeschool moms, not just working homeschool moms. But in some ways, we become even more intentional, methodical, rigid in our blocking of time or our structure, because we know that if we don't spend time on certain things, we'll get really frustrated and we won't accomplish what we need to, or maybe we have someone else that has a deadline for us. So we really have to have it done. And so the tendency can sometimes still be to be rigid, just like the earlier homeschool years when we think we can bring school to home and have a very rigid homeschool routine. So rigidity still doesn't work, even though there are times we really need to do something. And in those moments where we really need to do something, is it possible to hire a homeschool teen to look after the kids? Younger kids love teenagers, and homeschool teens absolutely know how to engage all the kids. Or is there maybe a grandma in the neighborhood or a friend that would love to have your kids over so that her kids could be playing with your kids and she could get some stuff done? Unless they're really little. So I think that is a useful way to get really important stuff done, is actually share the kids. So what you could do is also have a tablet or a screen time in the day. However you choose to do screen time, this one thing I know to be true. When kids have limits on screens and you bring out a screen, they're fully engaged in said screen. So perhaps the tech time or the screen time or the tablet time or whatever you call it can especially be brought out at the time where you need to get stuff done. When we're building a business specifically, not just working outside the home, but building a business, there's always going to be more things that you want to accomplish than is possible. Like, I still experience that. I have many, many, many ideas, and yet there is no way to do all the things all at once. And when you are also homeschooling at the time that you are building a business, you just can't do everything. You can't possibly do everything by the end of the week or even by the end of the year. But if you show up, have your seat in a seat, and you work on repeat, with regularity, you will accomplish so very much over the course of 3 years. The goal isn't, even when you're building a business or whether you're building a homeschool, your goal isn't about making it perfect, because I don't even know what that is. How do you measure what perfect is in that scenario? And yet we often feel compelled toward perfection. You're just seeking consistency, consistently showing up. That doesn't even have to be perfect showing up. It can be once, twice, 3 times a week, depending on how little your kids are or how likely you are to incorporate certain time blocks in your week. If you're consistent, you will get stuff done. You will build that business. When your kids know the flow, when they're familiar with your routine and what they expect of you when you are busy doing your thing, they are more likely to stop interrupting as much. I'll just qualify that, as much. I love listening to Stacy. Stacy and I were chatting last week in the Homeschool Mom Chat, and you can see that conversation. She's a working homeschool mom. She figured out how to create flow for herself in her working homeschool mom life. She's homeschooled for 6 years. She's outside of Texas, and she was sharing that she was able to get clear on when she needed to do her work, and she would tell her kids that she would actually need to do this work at a certain time of the day, but it wasn't her kids she needed to convince. It was herself she needed to convince. She said, I needed to make a deal with myself. What do I want? Put my seat in the seat and be present to what I'm doing. But also, when I'm with them, give them full attention. You can watch that conversation, Stacy and I, over in the Working Homeschool Mom playlist on YouTube. So the next piece I want to speak to you about is the boundaries. Boundaries begin with you. I say this on repeat. I'm sure you've heard me say this if we've hung out at all. I say this, you have to believe the boundary first before you put it out into the world, specifically with your kids. Or in the words of Stacy, make a deal with yourself. What do you want? Put your seat in the seat. Be present. When you're working, work. When you're parenting, be eyeball to eyeball with your kids, fully there. Your kids don't need your constant attention. They need intentional attention. I'll say that again. Your kids don't need constant attention. They need intentional attention. So if guilt plagues you because you're not always with your kids, consider using my guilt journal for homeschool moms. I'll pop the link in the description below. Possibly it's every mother's rite of passage to experience a bit of guilt. It probably is. That's why we call it mom guilt. It has a word in our culture. Maybe not. Maybe we can conquer that or overcome that. But I think it's a common conversation point. However, I think that guilt is a lot like a dysbiotic gut, like a gut that doesn't have quite the right combination of, all the good bacteria inside of it. A dysbiotic gut. So your stomach isn't absorbing or digesting its nutrients because your guilt is acting like a parasite. So you don't want that level of guilt. So what are you going to do about that guilt? So if this hits home, you're welcome to go listen to my podcast episode on the Homeschool Mama Self-Care Podcast. The podcast episode is called 5 Challenges Working Homeschool Moms Face and How to Overcome Them. It's a really detailed breakdown of the most common struggles that homeschool moms have. I'll throw it in the link below too. So the goal for you in building your working homeschool mom life, I'm guessing you want to create a business that's meaningful or that has some purpose, some vision behind it, and ditto for your homeschool. You need to get clear on what the visions are. What exactly would you like for your kids at the end of the 18 years that you're with them, assuming you're homeschooling that long? Or what about also your vision for your business build? What's your reason for doing it? Why do you want to do it? When you get clear on the vision, both of those visions, when you get clear on your why, then you can move towards that. You're raising kids who know what it means to live an intentional life when you are alongside them, building something outside of them. They're watching you. They're watching how you're coming up with this idea from nothing and then putting it on paper and then going through the steps of actually building it out into the real world. They're watching how you're building an intentional life. So ask yourself, what's your vision for your business? What kind of homeschool life do you want your kids to remember? And when they're grown up with kids themselves, what do you want them to say about this time? This is your why. You're not doing it all. You can't do it all, especially if you're a working homeschool mom. You're doing what matters most. If you want help clarifying either your homeschool or your business goals, you're welcome to do that with me. You just ask me for the booking link and together you have access to a free aligned homeschool reset consultation, and we'll create a plan that fits for you, your life, your work. It's not a template that is transferable to every single person. Ultimately, we customize the coaching intention or your plan for you, just like I encourage homeschool moms to customize their home education for the child right in front of them. Remember that no one is on their deathbed saying these words, "I wish I had worked more." That's not what ends up mattering for most people. There's a woman named Bronnie Ware. She was a hospice nurse and she did a little research on deathbed regrets. And she shared this, that one of the top regrets people have is, "I wish I hadn't worked as hard." So if guilt is whispering to you that you have to hustle harder or fill in every minute or you're not doing enough, know this: connection and rest and presence matter way more than productivity. So let me say this out loud. Connection with your kids isn't an option. That's your goal. And it's not a cliche conversation. It's very real. You're not choosing between correct connection and your career. Connection will always be more important. But you need to learn how to create rhythms to support what matters most, to allow both to exist in a happy, healthy environment. So, spoiler alert, you can't actually make this perfect or be flawless in this. You just need a rhythm that reflects what matters most to you. So if you're ready to create rhythms that matter most to you and that are really a step-by-step guide to simplify, to protect your time and include you in the plan, I have created the Working Homeschool Mom's Blueprint, and you'll find the link below. Listen to my episode on the 5 challenges of the working homeschool mom life, and watch the companion YouTube video that's just released tomorrow or today. What if you actually had enough time as a working homeschool mom? What if you did? And if you're building a business as well as homeschooling, you're welcome to join us in the Confident Homeschool Mom Collective Business Builders Circle. We're growing families and businesses with intention. No burnout allowed. So let me leave you with this. We often overestimate what we can accomplish in a day, but we massively underestimate what we can accomplish in 3 years. So let's build a rhythm that honors who you really are, what you really want, what really matters. You got this, girlfriend.